Okay, so this is going to be a big one. We've got a lot of ground to cover. I'm going to try to get through it as quickly as possible. Like I said, we have a lot of points that we have to hit. So we're going to jump right in and do a quick overview on the quarterly disclosure for Q2. Obviously, I think everyone's noticed because we get a lot of messaging on this. There was a noticeable jump in revenues. At this particular point, we've exceeded all of 2022's totals. So we're doing very well. We're not going to do projections, but obviously we're tracking to do exponentially better than the previous year, which is good. That's the goal, right? As far as progress resulting from the announced restructuring or divestment from certain interests, those are not going to reflect in this quarter because they occurred after June 3rd, right? So we're going to get to that in the next quarter, but there will be, and one thing that some people probably already noticed is that there was a reduction in debt in this particular Q, and that is only going to increase as we move further down the road. So the key point here for this quarter would be the divestment from Nextcast and Vector Scientific. Again, that occurred after the 30th, so it's not necessarily going to reflect in this quarter, but it was announced, so it will be acknowledged, right? So we're getting some questions and why we're doing certain things. We're just cleaning up, and this is not a commentary on any one person or company, but we are cleaning up all the non-performing investments or underperforming investments that we've made. And that is a completely separate exercise from the operational footprint or from basic operations of the company. So, or operational performance, we could put it in, right? So that's a separate exercise. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. You have to understand there's like a 10-year history with these assets that are either non-performing or underperforming, and it has taken time to evaluate, make decisions, and then execute. So it will take time, but it needs to, and it will be completed. So we are moving forward. So moving forward on, the elephant in the room, if you will, I received a number of questions on the legal issues that are in Q2. And while I know this is an area of interest and why there would be a number of questions, UATG cannot respond to an ongoing legal matter. We will, obviously, afterwards, we will get into it, give a little more color and texture to some things, but there's a strategy in place and we're going to be proceeding. So, and I recognize that outsiders, to include UATG shareholders, may not necessarily understand, or it may not be readily apparent as to what the strategy is. But rest assured, there's a strategy. Okay, so and we are moving forward on that. There's a couple of things that need to be put in place. We're progressing. Okay, and I will at the end. I'll make an additional comment. Okay, you have to understand anything we publicly disclose, either in our filings, news releases, Twitter, social media, video, that will also be known to any other interested party on the other side of the table. So we're just going to be, prudent and careful in how we progress and what we make public. After the fact, I think everyone here knows me well enough where we'll disclose it rather openly. I try to be as transparent as possible. So I believe that most of the shareholders, especially most people watching this, understand that and are willing to wait for the full disclosure. I will simply repeat one thing. In our disclosure, we stand by that UAT Group has paid this particular individual and subsequent companies related to him in excess of $17 million. That information has been in our disclosure reports several years. And for those that want to sharpshoot me, just go back and look at those disclosures. So they've been in there. That's something that's been disclosed. And the reality of the situation is that we deserve and expect results, right? And we have to get value for what we paid. That's the thing that may be lost on some, is that these assets have value. Whether it's stock or it's cash, there's value there, and there has to be an ROI on that. We are the custodians of the shareholders' assets, and we're all shareholders. So we have to make these decisions, and we have to be protective of, and we have to make decisions that support the protection of those assets and shareholder interest. So again, this is not a commentary on an individual. It's just that during the course of natural business events, certain things were expected, and unfortunately, things have fallen short. So again, this is a separate issue from anything else UAT Group is doing. We're required to disclose certain issues, and we have. So, and again, I'll reiterate, we are capable of doing more than one thing at a time. These actions will clarify, I believe, our path moving forward. Since we've spent a lot of time working on these various projects to create marketability, generate cash flow. Unfortunately, some efforts were unsuccessful. And now we have to pursue another path, right, to receive value for investment dollars. And that's the reason for the current legal issues and what are going to be future legal issues. So we're working on that. There's a path moving forward, and we will do that, and we will update you as is prudent to do so, and definitely after. Okay, so I think someone asked a really smart question. We're going to get to that, but yes, our funding partners, financing partners, we're all notified of this. This is not something that you hide, because if we decided to not disclose this and it's found that after the fact, that's a legal liability one, or before everything's consummated, it would fall apart. It's a complete waste of time. So we informed everyone, and we are continuing to proceed. Everyone understands. So that's not going to be an issue. We don't expect it to negatively impact any financing for H2O or anything else that we're currently working. You have to keep in mind that the financing we're working on is non-dilutive. It's operational or business based. So that's not something that's going to be impacted, and we have to go. We have to walk a fine line and make sure that what we're moving forward with is non-dilutive, and we're transparent with our funding partners. So, and no common shares are going to be issued. That's the thing. Yeah, there's an easier path, but dilution would occur, and that's not something that I'm interested in doing. And again, I'll address this. No one likes a low share price, right? More than I. I'm a shareholder just like you. So we are working towards improving things and have that share price follow our efforts. And to reemphasize, we are moving forward with our financing with H2O. We're going to get into a little more detail here shortly on that. But something I really need to prepare everyone for, and I'm not looking to take a hard line. I'm not doing this as a personal vendetta or anything, or this is not personal to me, but we will continue to target non-performing contracts, assets, relationships, what have you. I made it clear last year what needed to happen by the end of the year. Excuses, COVID excuses, whatever excuse du jour, if you will, those had to come to an end. This year we have a goal, and we need to put all efforts and all focus into delivering a return on our investments, but we have to have a desired result. We have to get to the positive cash flow that is all too important for us. So let's take a look at some of the reasons for the divestment that we've announced. Okay, so you have to look at it through a business lens, dollars and cents. The most significant accounting of non-performance received the largest investment. That's not sustainable. So we had to make changes, and we had to reallocate where we could. These assets that were not performing also carried significant debt associated with keeping them. So this is not something up until a couple weeks ago, we were still talking with certain parties. We were working through. We were very interested in working through. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. So understand, these are the reasons that we're moving forward down this path, and it's a good thing. I know there's a negative connotation. I believe it will be a good thing for our public company and subsidiaries, and also anyone else that may no longer be a part of our group. It's a positive path forward, even though there's some negativity associated with it. That's kind of the business process of things, unfortunately, or the legal process of things. But at the end of the day, we have thousands of shareholders that are counting on us, and we have fiduciary responsibility to make decisions for the long-term solvency of the company that ensures their investment. And that's what we're doing. We are course correcting and making changes that are in the best interest of the company and its shareholders. And I think that's going to trickle down and across the other companies that may no longer participate in what we do. It doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that it didn't work with us. So that's where we're at on that. And understand, I'm a major stockholder in the company. I want us to do well, and it doesn't really benefit us or do anything positive for us to wish ill on someone else. We are just going to move forward on our path. And again, we're still moving forward on the investment dollars and financing and credit facility. So this is a positive thing. And I'm going to make a statement because I know someone's going to say it, right? Had we allocated those dollars to H2O, we'd be in a completely different fiscal position. I agree, which is part of the reason we're making change. Hindsight's 2020, and I'm not looking to throw a cliche at you or a catchphrase, but mistakes were made, and we're going to go ahead and move forward. This streamlining, this divestment, looking at why we're divesting, this will aid in our progress with institutional financing investment. This is something that was brought to our attention on maybe some of the diversity was a little too diverse, maybe a little unfocused. We need to take a look at non-performing assets and kind of get them out of the picture so that the banking facilities and banking relationships say, okay, you guys seem focused. We see a path. And that's what we're doing. Okay. So, I will touch on one thing. We did work diligently to assist management to bring these products to market. It just didn't work out. You have to understand, because I did get one message from someone. My job is not to run 5 companies. And if I did, it wouldn't work. It's too much to tackle. You need to be a team player. And our business model is not taking over. It's to utilize existing management and then add value, whether it's capital, whether it's relationships, what have you. So you have to, there has to be a need to be willing to accept input, make changes when things don't go as planned, and you have to be a team player. And not everyone shares that type of vision, and that's okay. But for us to do what we needed to do, we have a certain set of guidelines or protocols we need to follow to ensure our success. And hopefully that's what will happen. I believe it will. So I'm not going to get into any more of that. We're not going to comment on existing legal matters beyond what we've already said in the disclosures, kind of just summarizes it a little bit. I'm going to jump right into your questions, and then we'll kind of button things up in the end. I'm trying to keep it a short video. I know it's going to be challenging. Okay, so Scott Miller asked, how can Osifix have no reported sales with all the demand that was talked about? They were producing product and demand was high, so why wasn't the product being sold? Okay, so as discussed, pertaining to legal issues, we don't wish to add to the disclosure statement. What I will say is I will stand by our previous statements based on what we were told and some of the evidence that I did see. Surgeries and sales did take place. Invoices were slow to be collected. There was inconsistent, incomplete, and late reporting to the public company. And just some things were poorly managed, and that might be up to and including the relationship. So that's not going to reflect to our bottom line. I will say that the expectations were very high, I think, on both sides for delivery of product. I think there were some challenges that were difficult to overcome on their side. and hopefully they did their best. That remains to be seen. So what I would say is, from our side, we reported as best we could based off the information that we had at the time. So, and from what I saw, there really just wasn't enough revenue to support some of the high demand claims that we saw towards the end. Okay, but again, to their credit, very much to their credit, surgeries took place and sales continues. Okay, so Port City Bob, we'd like a breakdown of where did the 1.7 million in revenue come from? Is it all from, from Hygeia, or was any from H2O? Okay, so we're going to stick to consolidated financials for a very specific reason. This is to support our banking efforts and what we have submitted. In the future, we are going to break everything down. I would like to. I think it's very important. To me, it only makes sense. But for the purposes of credit facilities and banking, everything's got to be under one. All right, it's a larger number. And then I will say H2O will report significant revenues after that build out and delivery occurs. And we're going to get into that here in a minute too, because there's some questions. A2K, can you provide detail on H2O Processing's relationship with RIAC? As previously stated, there is no relationship. This was addressed, and you just may not be around for that. This was addressed. There is no relationship. Val, and I spoke to you a couple of times today, Val. So, but I want to read it because I want everybody to benefit from the question. Status and quantity of H2O build-outs and milestones of each. Okay, so keep in mind some components have longer lead times than others. We're positioning to begin production, but that is going to take place after we finalize some of the banking. There's no reason to start a production line that's partial. Or I should say, no reason to start a partial production line. I need to get all the units, whatever we're going to do, that needs to be done all at once. Get that first run out and then move forward. I know it's frustrating. I promise you it's more frustrating for me than it is anyone looking on the outside in. But we are getting there, making a lot of progress in banking, and hopefully we're going to get everything consummated soon. Richard Williams, how have the oil companies UATG has contracts with been handling the delay in funding? I would imagine that you're going to get started. Yep, Richard, they are. You're going to get started. They've been incredible. We have a great relationship with the contracting producers, and they are updated regularly. They get it. They understand. And this is why we haven't taken more contracts. Because the initial contracts we had a good relationship with, and they understood. And we knew there might be a challenge associated with moving forward. And we have some backups. I'm going to touch on that in a moment. And we will sign those up as the moment production begins on the first wave. Also from Richard, with the delays in funding and troubles with the subsidiaries, have you considered adding some talent that could help you with streamlining some of UATG's objectives? Thanks for your time. Okay, my pleasure. So we have actually, which is why in part changes have been implemented beginning last year, and the changes will continue. Obviously, we brought in some outside talent to develop the tech, and that continues. We continue to build around some of those relationships and add to the team. Is not just with the tech side, but also production, supply chain, fulfillment, maintenance, all of that, the support of that equipment. We are working on that, and we continue to progress. Okay, so Dirk's current ones. He wants details on current contracts, status, how many. Oh, I guess how many contracts? Okay. How close is UATG with equipment machinery completion for these contracts? When? How many potential real contracts waiting for bank funding? Is bank funding almost complete for equipment manufacturing and facility? Thanks. Okay, so there's 3 current contracts. That's the banking that we are working on. We are also working on the banking for what we know is coming, right? So we have a couple waiting to be signed. Those contracts are already drafted. We will not issue them until we get the first contracts fulfilled, right? It doesn't make sense to build an expectation with a client base and then not perform. The initial contracts, they understood that. So I'm I'm hesitant to move forward with new contracts until we know the money's in the bank, if you will, right? So once they're initially serviced, we'll sign those next contracts. I believe there's 3 already drafted, ready to go, and there's several behind that requesting. We are very optimistic that the banking should be finalized shortly. I've said this previously, so shortly is a relative term. We're making progress every week. It's a little complicated. There's some nuance there. I touched on this past. I don't want to beat a dead horse on that. I think most people understand that. Okay, so We Be Flying asks, are you open to do a live Q&A? Absolutely. It's more about availability of time than willingness. So we'll get there. We're prioritizing the allocation of time, and I've just got to get this stuff done with H2O. I mean, I can't stress enough, streamlining things and divesting our interest has really helped free up a lot of time for me and get my absolute focus on H2O so we can get those revenues. So that's the highest priority, to be frank. Go for your dream. Good morning, Alex. Have you received the SBA loan money yet? And when will H2O start producing revenue? Okay, so that commitment's approved. And I think we touched on this before, but I think it's worth touching on again. Those lines are activated and subsequently will be increased from 500 all the way up to 5 million each on an as-needed basis. Once the first payment cycle on that first field unit is made. What does that mean? So they want to see that net 30-day cycle for that 12-month contract that can be extended over and over. They want to see that first cycle goes. This is just part of the underwriting at that bank. Yes, it's an SBA program. It's backed by the SBA, but they have their guidelines. So we are working on getting those first units put in place. And then after that, we're going to implement the SBA. So hopefully, if that's not clear, shoot me some questions, and we can maybe do a video just on that if it helps. JMac, I just got a message from you. I believe they responded. Thank you for letting us know about the Twitter incident. In fact, I'm going to say something at the end because, the amount of calls, messages, and emails that I've received, I just, it's, thank you. It really is nice to see so many people appreciate the transparency and appreciate our efforts and have that loyalty. So again, and JMac, I've talked to you several times. Thank you very much. He wants an answer on the time starting reporting for the sub. So he wants to know, okay, so he's asking about, and I just answered this. Eventually we will do itemized disclosures and financials. But right now, the consolidated financials really support us procuring finance. So that's the reason we're doing it. And then what happened with the railroad commission? And again, JMac, the guy's on point. Okay, great question. That my fault. I should have addressed this sooner. We just got distracted with a few things, and I forgot to update. So my understanding with the railroad commission, they want pilot projects. And they want that to demonstrate a minimum of 50% removal of water down saltwater discharge rules. And they also want the companies to front all the money for the demonstration. We don't know how long that demonstration is going to go, so we need to be full-size unit. Or they want us to partner with a major oil company to fund the project. Well, that's not going to protect our IP, which is why none of the other companies have done that to me. So we presented our position. We had the ability to clean water. There were demonstrations on the demo unit, and we've also been able to prove, at least to bring down the water, even for irrigation purposes, through the Oklahoma permit and the documentation that supported that. You have to understand, these are the water units. These are not the oil treatment units. You're talking about a cost of well over $1 million. We're just not, in the position to fund government projects and allocate that money, because what's the return on that investment, and how long does that cycle do? How long will that cycle take? So that's not something that we can do. That doesn't mean that's not subject to change. We are going to go back because we have clients that are looking for under contract. So we're going to go back to that. There's a stepwise process here. We'll build up the revenues through iron mitigation. That's going to give us a lot of resources and capital to go ahead and start building up those points. And then the other thing is, we are, as a company, not prepared to start refocusing efforts. I'm focused on H2O with the iron mitigation and the contracts we already have signed. That's the highest priority. We've got to get the revenues in, okay? So at this point, it's important to understand they're promoting the process. And this is just a typical government way to solve a problem without using their funds. And I understand it. I appreciate that there's limited funds, and that's what they were. So we will revisit. Nobody else has our tech, especially at the capacity and volumes that we can. Okay, Bullflex Daily. When you say revs are increasing, does that mean Q3 revs will be larger than Q2? To be blunt, we expect so. Revenues for 2023 already exceed 2022. So we continue that to trend. We continue to believe that will trend. Okay, so I want to say a few things. We had a few questions to do weekly calls. One of the reasons I stopped that is because that was creating a scheduled weekly update. That creates an unrealistic expectation of quote unquote notable updates and or progress, to be quite frank, every single week. That's just not how business works. That expectation is not sustainable, and it's not real world realistic. So I felt that it was disingenuous to schedule that, and then also kind of waste everyone's time maybe talking about some things that might be a little more mundane and may not be as interesting because, day to day, it's not very exciting. It's the aggregate of efforts that becomes a little more exciting and bears those results. So yes, we've had obviously very notable increase in revenues. That's a great thing. We've had over a $10 million reduction in debt. And now we have a very clear path, I believe, established through this disclosure, the clarity and path to move forward on non-performing assets. I think that really clears things up for the company as a whole, because now we're not going to be as distracted or divided into different areas of focus. So, and this consolidates corporate resources so that we can focus on revenue-driven assets. This is important. This is what I believe shareholders want us to do. Get to the revenues, start getting profitable. Obviously, we're going to be doing things with how we account for that to help offset some of the tax liability, but we need to increase our revenues as we have, and we need to continue to grow those exponentially. And I'm a realist. Don't think I'm not getting it. A couple $1 million versus what everyone wants to see, $50 million. That can come across insignificant. I don't view millions of dollars as insignificant, but I will say I understand and share everyone's eagerness to move forward to cashing in those contracts, which is what we're working towards. We have to bring those assets forward. So we will continue reducing debt. We will continue to grow revenues. And I'm going to try to get it cut off here because we're really long on time. But I do want to thank everyone. I'm going to make this my final note here. I received several phone calls directly from shareholders that I do speak with. We received phone calls into the office. I received emails with links to show me what was being said on Twitter. We received direct messages. And I genuinely, sincerely mean this. I appreciate everyone looking out for us. We're in this together. I've said that for years. We're all shareholders. All I would suggest is, work on putting things into context. Give us the time to move forward, and then I think things will become a little bit clearer. I just can't thank you enough for your support, and thanks for helping us out. I mean, letting us know that things are occurring and things are happening. So I do appreciate that. So I hope everybody has a great weekend, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. I'm not sure when the next video will be. We're working on a few things, and believe me, as soon as we get a break in a few of these efforts, I'm not going to hold them back. We're going to make the announcement. So Have a great weekend, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Thank you. Bye.